My name is Elizabeth, and this is my story. A story I tell through tears and pain that still won't let me go. I never thought that I would have to experience something so terrible, so devastating. After all, we were happy. Or at least I thought so. When I met Daniel, everything changed. He was the whole world to me. His smile always lifted my spirits, and his hugs were the place where I always found peace. We were inseparable from the beginning. Every minute spent with him was like a magical moment that I would like to keep forever. Our days were filled with happiness, and our nights were filled with warmth and closeness. We dreamed together, planned our future together, which seemed so bright and cloudless. He was everything to me, and I truly trusted him. But somehow everything started to change. Little details that I hadn't noticed before suddenly became all too obvious. Late returns home, short answers to my questions, and that strange absence of that former warmth in his eyes. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, that he was still the same man I loved. However, the heart felt something was wrong. It was as if an invisible wall appeared between us, and I, without even realizing it, began to fear losing him, not realizing that I was already losing it. Every morning I woke up with a heavy heart, trying to find again the light that once warmed our days. But instead, she met an ominous silence that gradually enveloped our home. She was like a heavy blanket that absorbed every sound, every word, every look we had. I tried to find the answer in his eyes, trying to see the same fire that burned there before. But his gaze was empty, as if he was looking right through me. His every touch became cold as ice, and the embrace no longer brought comfort, only a feeling of emptiness. I didn't recognize my Daniel. I remember that evening when we were sitting together on the sofa, but at the same time we were so far from each other. I tried to speak, to find out what was bothering him, but the words stuck in my throat. He just stared at the TV, ignoring me, as if I had become invisible. "Daniel." My voice was so low, it seemed like it could easily be drowned out by the ominous noise in the room. "What happened to us? Why did everything change?" He turned his head and looked at me, but there was no answer in his eyes that I was so desperately looking for. "It's okay, Liz." His voice was so indifferent it made me want to scream, but I kept silent, choking on my own despair. And then a suspicion arose in me. Something was wrong, something deep, dark, that destroyed our happiness. I felt my world start to crumble into little pieces, and I didn't know how to put them back together. Something in me made me look for answers, even if I was afraid of what I would find. That night, I lay awake for a long time, listening to his steady breathing, which seemed alien to me. My heart was beating wildly, as if before a storm that was about to cover us. I knew I had to find out the truth, whatever it was, but I was not ready for the fact that this discovery would completely destroy me. The next morning, I decided not to leave my suspicions alone. I couldn't afford to lose him without realizing what was going on. But how could I approach the truth if it was hiding in the shadow of our relationship? Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, completely engrossed in his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, and I felt something painfully squeeze my heart. Who was he writing to? About what? Why do these messages give him such an interest that I no longer see in his eyes when he looks at me? I approached him and quietly asked, "What are you reading?" My voice trembled as if I was afraid to hear the answer. He raised his head and I saw something new in his face, something that scared me. It was a faint nervousness, something like desperation that he was trying to hide. "Nothing important," he answered quickly, too quickly. He put the phone down on the table, and that was the moment I felt the chill go through my bones. I felt that he was hiding something. I decided not to retreat. "Daniel, what's going on? I feel you pulling away from me. What did I do wrong?" My voice filled with despair. I could no longer hold back tears. They burned my eyes fiercely, but I tried to restrain them, although it was impossible. He sat silently before me, his face as impenetrable as stone. I waited, hoping he would open up, tell me it was just my imagination. But he just sighed softly and said, "Liz, you didn't do anything. Everything just became different." These words were like a blow to the heart. Other? I could not understand what he meant. What does other mean? We had to be a team, support each other no matter what happened. but he was no longer the man I knew. That day was the first time I seriously began to think about the fact that he might have someone else. This thought stuck in my mind like a poison that was slowly eating away at me from the inside. I tried to convince myself that this was absurd, that Daniel could not betray me. But the longer I thought about it, the stronger this feeling became. And then I decided to find out the truth. I knew it would hurt, but it would hurt even more to live in ignorance. I decided that I would not back down until I found the answers to my questions, even if it meant the end of everything I knew and loved. The next few days were a real test for me. My heart was full of doubts, but I couldn't just sit back. Every morning I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest, as if a black hole had formed in my soul, which was pulling me more and more into itself. I began to follow Daniel more closely, trying to catch any sign that he was hiding something from me. His every movement, every look now seemed suspicious. I knew he was hiding something, but I couldn't figure out what. One evening, after Daniel fell asleep, I dared to do what I had previously thought was impossible. I quietly got out of bed, trying not to wake him, and went to his phone. My heart was beating so hard, I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. I didn't want to be the kind of woman who would pry into my husband's private life, but I couldn't take the unknown any longer. I took the phone and entered the password, which unfortunately I knew. My heart stopped for a moment when the screen unlocked. I did not know what I expected to see, but I still felt that I had already taken a step into an abyss from which I would not return. First of all, I checked his message. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through my contact list, trying to find anything unusual. Nothing suspicious. I already started to calm down, but then I noticed one name: Amelia. I broke out in a cold sweat. Who is she? When I opened the chat, I saw the last few messages, and with each word, my throat started to rise. They were short, but each one was filled with an intimacy I hadn't felt from him in so long. See you tomorrow. I miss you. You are wonderful. These words, addressed to another woman, were like knives that cut into my heart. My breathing became ragged, and I felt tears begin to fall from my eyes. I was sitting on the floor of our bedroom, holding the phone, which suddenly became unbearably heavy. Everything I was afraid of has now become a reality. Daniel betrayed me. My world, which I so diligently built together with him, crumbled before my eyes. I didn't know how long I sat there crying in silence. Tears flowed like a river, and with each new tear I felt a piece of my heart disappearing forever. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake him up and ask how he could do this to me, but I was paralyzed by fear. I wasn't ready for this collision, not now. I put the phone back in its place and went back to bed. Lying next to him, I could feel my pain tearing me apart from the inside, but I couldn't show it. That night I realized that I had already lost him, even if he was still around. The night dragged on endlessly. I lay next to Daniel, listening to his calm breathing, and tried to understand how it all happened. How could he throw us out of his heart so easily? How could he hide this lie, looking me in the eye every day? The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. My heart was filled with pain and anger, and I knew I had to talk to him, even if it was the last thing I would do for our marriage. I waited for him to wake up, feeling the storm building inside me. When Daniel woke up and saw me, he seemed to know something was wrong. His look was worried, but he didn't ask what was bothering me. This silence became another proof of his guilt. He already knew what I knew, and it was the most painful. "We need to talk." My voice shook, but I forced myself to speak. He looked at me with such anxiety that I had never seen in his eyes before. "What happened, Liz?" he asked, trying to stay calm, but I could see his hands shaking slightly. "You know what happened." I could no longer hold back tears. They poured out in torrents. I saw how his face changed, how his calm dissipated, leaving only fear and guilt. "Liz, I can explain everything." He tried to come closer, but I backed away. Couldn't let him touch me after what he did. His touch was now disgusting to me, like a cold snake crawling on my skin. "There's nothing you can say that can justify this." My heart was tearing apart, but I forced myself to stay strong. I couldn't give him more power over my feelings. He lowered his head, and I saw him clenching his fists as if he was trying to find words that could make amends for what had happened. But it was too late. It was a mistake, Liz. I don't know how it happened. I love you, but I messed up. Do you love? I almost suffocated from those words. You love me, but you're sleeping with another woman? How can you call that love? He looked as if he had been hit. His eyes filled with tears, but they could no longer touch my heart. I was too broken, too wounded. Liz, please forgive me. He knelt down in front of me, begging for forgiveness, but I just looked at him in despair. How could I forgive what he did? How could I trust a person who betrayed me so easily? You ruined everything. I barely found the strength to utter these words. You destroyed everything that was between us, and now I don't know how to live on. I turned away from him so he wouldn't see my pain turning into rage. I couldn't be around him anymore. I couldn't stand his presence. I quickly left the room, leaving him on the floor where I thought he should have stayed. That day, I realized that our marriage, our life, everything I thought was unbreakable, was now forever ruined. And although I still didn't know how I could live without him, I knew one thing. I would never forgive his betrayal. I left it in our bedroom, where we once shared dreams, secrets, and love. I walked down the hall, and each step echoed in my soul, reminding me of all that we had lost. Pictures of our life together, the first kiss, the wedding, our funny and happy moments, were spinning in my head. And now all this seemed like some distant, unattainable dream that had disappeared forever. I went into the kitchen and put my hands on the table, trying to keep myself from breaking down completely. My hands were shaking, and the tears that I thought had dried up started to flow again. I felt so broken that it was hard to even breathe. The feeling that all my hopes and dreams had been destroyed weighed on me with such force that I didn't know if I would ever be able to regain my strength. Daniel stayed in the bedroom. I knew he must be sitting there, maddened by what he had done. But I couldn't think about his feelings anymore. All that remained in me was my pain, my despair. I thought about our family, about how this would affect all of us. How could I tell our children that their father was no longer the man they knew? How could I admit to myself that our marriage was built on lies? All these questions swirled in my head, causing even more pain. I went to the window and looked at the street. Sunlight was breaking through the clouds, but I felt as if the whole world had been plunged into darkness. Everything that was once important to me has now lost its meaning. I looked at the people walking by, the cars driving by, and I couldn't understand how the world could continue to exist when my world had collapsed. At that moment, I felt completely alone. No one could understand what I was going through. No one could give me back what I lost. I stood by the window, feeling something inside me die every second. My heart was broken, my dreams were shattered, and I didn't know how I could go on. Time seems to have stopped. My thoughts wandered through the memories in which I tried to find at least some comfort, at least some hope that this was all just a nightmare from which I was about to wake up. But every time I opened my eyes again, reality hit me with new force. I knew I had to make a decision about how to move forward. But how can you make a decision when your heart is broken into 1,000 pieces? How can you build a future when the past, which you considered your foundation, turned out to be a lie? Tears streamed down my face, and I could feel them washing away my wounded soul. They were a silent testimony to my pain, my loss, my love, so cruelly betrayed. And although I didn't know what lay ahead of me, I knew one thing. I could no longer be the woman I was before. That part of me died with our love. I stood by the window looking at the world which seemed so distant and alien. Everything that was happening outside of him was so unimportant compared to the chaos inside of me. The sunlight that I once loved so much now seemed faded and indifferent to my suffering. I wanted to scream, but my voice got stuck in my throat. I was like a broken vase that could not be put back together. The inner emptiness I felt was consuming me from the inside. It was difficult to breathe, difficult even to think. All I could do was feel, and this feeling was unbearable. I was suddenly filled with fear. What if this is my life now? What if I can never heal from this wound? I was trapped in my own pain, and there was no way out. I remembered our conversations about the future, about how we dreamed of growing old together. Now these dreams seemed to me a bitter joke. I couldn't believe that the person I shared these dreams with could destroy them so easily. How could he not see that his every word, his every action was so important to me? I sat down on the kitchen chair, feeling weakness wash over my body. The head was dizzy from the thoughts that swarmed like wasps. I didn't know what to do. It seems that my whole world has collapsed, and I am left in ruins, unable to put it back together. In the end, I decided to do what was the only logical step in this situation. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of my best friend, Jessica. She was always my support, and I knew that only she could understand me, even if no one else could. "Jessica!" My voice treacherously trembled when I heard her voice on the other end of the line. "Liz, what happened?" Her alarming voice only increased my tears. I could no longer restrain them. He betrayed me." Those words were like a knife that I had to pull out of myself to survive. And even though it hurt, I knew I had to say it. Jessica didn't answer right away. She was silent, and I knew she was searching for words that could calm me down. But what words can help when your world is falling apart? "Liz, I'll be right now," she finally said. And I heard the same determination in her voice that had always helped me through my worst moments. I put the phone down and, feeling a new wave of tears wash over me, I knew that we were going to have a difficult conversation ahead of us. But at least someone will be there to share this pain with me. At least someone who will support me when I start destroying everything that is left of my life with Daniel. I looked again at the bedroom door behind which Daniel had stayed. My pain was mixed with hatred and despair. I didn't know how I would look him in the eyes after all this, but I knew that our relationship would never be the same again. This betrayal has changed both of us, and what happened will not come back. From the moment I hung up the phone, time seemed to stand still. I sat in the kitchen, listening to the silence that filled the whole house. The echo of my thoughts was all I could hear. Every sound seemed too loud and every movement too heavy. My heart continued to ache, and each blow seemed to be another blow to my broken soul. I tried to understand why he did it, why he betrayed me, our love, our family. But there was no answer. There was only a sense of desolation and despair. I remembered how Daniel and I were building this life together. We made every choice, every decision together. We dreamed of a future that now looked as if it never existed. His betrayal destroyed everything we created. Suddenly, I heard the front door open and my heart beat faster. It was Jessica. I felt relieved, but at the same time ashamed that I had to admit my weaknesses to another person. She entered the kitchen without saying a word. Her face was filled with compassion, and her eyes showed that she understood what I was going through. She came to me and just hugged me. This simple gesture was so necessary that I finally allowed myself to cry. I cried, clinging to her, crying out all my grief, pain, and despair. She held me without saying anything. Her hug was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. The tears streaming down my face were like a river washing away the wounds in my heart. "It's going to be okay, Liz," she finally whispered. But I couldn't believe her. How can it be good when your life is falling apart? How can it be good when all you want is to run away from this pain? We sat together, Jessica holding my hand, and I felt her strength transfer to me. Although my heart was broken, her support kept me from losing myself completely. But there was a long road ahead, and I didn't know if I would be able to go through it. My life was divided into before and after. And even though I was sitting here in my own kitchen, I felt like I didn't belong anymore. My pain, my betrayal became the only truths I could come to terms with. When I looked at Jessica again, her eyes were filled with compassion. She knew I was going through hell, but she also knew that I was stronger than I looked. Her faith in me gave me at least some hope that maybe one day I could find myself again. But for now, all I could do was just be. To be in your pain, in your despair, in your memories. Because even in this chaos, I was still me. And maybe it was the only thread that kept me in this world. We sat in silence, and only the quiet noise of the clock on the wall reminded us of the passage of time. Each second seemed like an eternity, each arrow strike another scar on my soul. Jessica wouldn't let go of my hand, like she was afraid I might break if she did. And to tell the truth, I myself was afraid of it. "Liz, you have to do something about this." Jessica finally said, breaking the silence that was pressing on me. Her words were full of concern, but also determination. You can't just leave it like this and hope it will work itself out. I knew she was right. But what action could change what had already happened? How could one heal a wound that was inflicted so deeply that one could not even see its end? I don't know, Jessie. My voice sounded weak, like the voice of a little girl lost in a dark forest. I don't know how to live after this. I don't know how to forgive, or at least how to live with this hatred. She looked at me and I saw her eyes fill with tears. She knew what I was going through, and she knew words wouldn't do much here. But she also knew that I shouldn't be alone in this hell. You must find the strength to talk to him, she said, and the words, though they seemed simple, carried a heavy burden. You have to understand why he did it so you can make a decision whether to live with it or let it go. Talk to him? Just thinking about it made me want to run away. How could I look into his eyes, knowing that he betrayed me? How could I listen to his voice when his every word could become a new wound? Jessie, I'm scared, I admitted, feeling my hands begin to shake. I'm afraid to hear the truth. I'm afraid that if he says he doesn't love me anymore, I'll break down completely. She gripped my hand even tighter, and her gaze became even more determined. You're stronger than you think, Liz, and no matter what he says, you're going to survive. You're going to get through this, and I'll be with you every step of the way. Her words were like a ray of light in the darkness, but even this ray could not dispel all the darkness around me. I knew she was right, that I needed to talk to Daniel, but fear and pain held me in an iron grip. Am I ready to hear his truth? Will I be able to pick up the pieces of my life after he tells me everything he's been hiding? I didn't know what to do, but deep down I knew that this decision had to be made now. Not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but now. Because every minute of delay was another blow to my heart. Okay, I finally said, feeling determination starting to push its way through the fear. I will talk to him. I want to know the truth, even if it destroys me. Jessica nodded, her face full of pride and support. And I'll be there for you, Liz. We'll get through this together. I felt a shadow of a smile appear on my face. For the first time in a long time, I felt that there was something worth fighting for. And even though this struggle could be the biggest of my life, I knew I had to go through it. Now all that remained was to find the strength to go into the room where Daniel was and ask him a question that could change everything forever. I stood in front of our bedroom door, where I knew Daniel was. My hand was shaking as I tried to get the courage to open the door. Each breath felt heavy, as if the air had become as thick as water, and I was drowning in my emotions. My heart was beating wildly, pounding in my chest as if it wanted to break free and escape from this reality. I knew that behind this door was the truth that I was so afraid to hear. But at the same time, I understood that I could no longer live in obscurity. I could no longer allow myself to be a prisoner of my own pain. Gathering all my strength, I finally pressed the handle and opened the door. My legs could barely move, and each step seemed harder than the last. Daniel was sitting on the bed. His gaze was fixed on the window. He didn't hear me come in, or maybe he didn't want to hear. Daniel. My voice was weak and hoarse, almost a whisper. I felt him startle at my voice. His shoulders tensed, and he slowly turned his head to look at me. In his eyes, I saw the imprint of my own pain. But there was something more, a mixture of guilt and despair that pierced through me. I knew that he understood what would happen now, and I knew he wouldn't want to be here any more than I do. We need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. He nodded without looking away. His silence was heavy, tense, and it only added to the fear in my soul. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding on to the edge as if trying to keep from falling into the abyss that opened before me. I want to know the truth, Daniel. Why? Why did you do this to me? To us? He stared at his hands, which were shaking just like mine. The silence stretched on forever, and I almost broke under its weight. But then he spoke, and every word he said was like a knife piercing my heart. I don't know, Liz. His voice was muffled, and I could tell he was lost in his own guilt. It happened so fast. I didn't realize it had gone too far myself. I was a fool. I thought it was just some moment of weakness, but it turned out to be more. His words hit me, and each blow hurt more than the last. "You talk about it like it was nothing, Daniel. Like it didn't ruin our lives. Like you just slipped up." "No!" He suddenly raised his head, and I saw how his eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't a small thing, and I understand what I did. I understand that I ruined our lives, but I can't explain why it happened. I can't find the words to justify me." I felt my anger begin to grow like a fire burning inside me. "Justify? You want to make an excuse, Daniel? For what? For betraying me? For destroying everything we had together?" He shook his head, and I saw tears roll down his face. He didn't try to hold them back, and it only made my pain worse. "No, Liz, I'm not looking for excuses. I know there aren't any. I just don't know how to live with this. I don't know how to live without you." My heart was being torn to pieces. I wanted to scream, to blame him for everything that happened. But instead, I felt something break inside me. I couldn't fight anymore. I couldn't be strong anymore. "Daniel," my voice was low, barely audible. "You already lost me. You lost us, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you." His face was filled with despair, and I could see him struggling with his feelings. But at that moment, I could no longer be around. I could no longer look at him, know that he was the one who destroyed everything I loved. I got up from the bed, feeling how every step took me away from him, from us. "I'm leaving, Daniel. I don't know if I can come back, but I need to be alone now." He tried to say something, but I wasn't listening anymore. I left, leaving behind everything that was once our life. My soul was a broken thread, and I didn't know if I would ever be able to find myself again. But I knew one thing for sure. I would have to go this way alone. My way out of the house was like a journey through a labyrinth where every step seemed more and more difficult. I was leaving behind Daniel and the world that was once mine. Every detail, every object I passed reminded me of what we had lost, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes again. I got into the car and started the engine, although I did not know where I was going. My thoughts were in disorder, and I could not find the slightest reassurance. I drove without a specific goal, just trying to escape from the pain I left at home. The silence in the car was desperate, and only my bitter thoughts broke it. I drove through the city streets, passing familiar places that now seemed foreign. Houses, parks, cafes, all this seemed empty, as if they were only scenery in my personal spectacle of grief. I saw my reflection in every rearview mirror, but it seemed alien. A tired, confused face that has lost its joy and light. I pulled over on the side of the road and just sat there, unable to believe that I was the Liz who was once happy. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw Jessica's name. My hand was shaking as I answered, but her voice was as warm and supportive as ever. "Liz, where are you?" Her voice was full of anxiety. "I'm worried about you." "I don't know where I am," I admitted, feeling the tears start to fall again. "I'm just going. I can't stay where I was." "You have to go home," she said, her voice sounding like an order, but with a tenderness that indicated she truly cared. "You can't handle this alone. Let me help you." I closed my eyes, and in that moment, all I wanted was to just disappear, to be in another place, where there would not be all these painful memories. But deep inside, I knew that this was not an option, that even if I run, I can't escape my own heart. "Okay," I finally said, turning the car back towards the house. "I'm coming back, but I need you to be with me." "I'm already waiting for you," Jessica replied. Her words were like an outlet. I felt my anxiety recede a bit as I headed back. When I returned home, night had already fallen on the city, and the house seemed a shadow of itself. I saw Jessica standing in the doorway, and her arms were the only warmth that could warm my broken heart. She did not ask, did not judge. She was just there, ready to support. We sat together in the living room, and I told her everything that had happened. How I tried to understand how he could betray, how it ruined our plans, our love. Jessica listened without interrupting, just giving me a chance to speak. I knew that the tears I shed were not the only expression of my pain. My deep feelings and frustrations were part of the process, part of my journey to recovery. And although I have not yet seen the end of this path, I knew that I could not go through it alone. When I finally shut up, Jessica took my hand and squeezed it lightly. "You're stronger than you think, Liz, and I'm sure you'll find a way to heal. But you have to let yourself feel whatever you're feeling right now." I nodded, although I knew that the road to recovery would be long and difficult. But even though I still didn't know how it would end, I felt a small glimmer of hope. Perhaps there is still room for healing and new beginnings in my life. The days that followed after returning home seemed endless. I lived in constant anxiety. My soul was like an eternally agitated sea that could not find peace. My memories of Daniel and our happy moments became like a knife cutting my heart. I tried to immerse myself in the daily routine, but all things seemed empty and meaningless. In every corner of our house, there were pieces of the past that reminded us of what was. I usually tried to avoid places associated with happy moments: our kitchen, where we cooked together, the living room where we cuddled while watching movies, the bedroom that was now a battlefield for my memories. One morning, I woke up and decided that something needed to change. I knew that leaving things as they were was not going to help me heal. I needed to find a way to deal with my pain, to find a new purpose. Jessica, seeing my distress, suggested I go to yoga, something new to distract me from my old thoughts. The first yoga class was a real test for me. My mind was filled with chaotic thoughts and memories of Daniel. I tried to focus on my breathing, but instead my mind was caught up in the vortex of the past. I could feel my body tense up trying to focus. It seemed to me that every exercise only made my pain worse. But gradually, with each repetition, I began to feel my mind becoming calmer. Exercise and breathing started to help me let go of some of my anxiety. Every moment spent on the mat was like a small recovery that helped me start seeing the light in my life again. After a few weeks of practice, I noticed that my tension was slightly reduced. I began to see meaning in simple things and allowed myself to experience moments of joy, even if they were short and insignificant. However, despite these small victories, the memories of Daniel still stayed with me. One night, as I was trying to sleep, my phone rang again. It was Daniel. His name on the screen caused a storm of emotions. I hesitated, but eventually answered. "Liz." His voice sounded confused and full of anguish. "I know you don't want to hear me, but I just want to apologize. I know I can't fix anything, but I needed to tell you this." I felt my heart clench with emotion. "Why are you calling Daniel? What do you want from me?" "I want you to know that I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, and I'm willing to do anything to make it right if you'll let me." His voice was filled with desperation. "It's not just about what you want to fix, Daniel. It's about the fact that you destroyed everything we had. I can't go back to the way things were. I can't be with you the way it was before." I felt tears welling up in my eyes again. I ended the conversation and fell silent again in silence, which now seemed even more difficult. I knew I had to find the strength to let it go and move on. But even realizing this, I couldn't stop my soul from feeling the pain again. At such moments, I understood that my path to healing would not be easy. But I also knew that every day, with every small victory, I was getting stronger. And although I didn't yet know where this path would lead me, I tried to move forward, even when the shadows of the past continued to haunt me. A few weeks passed, and I began to get used to the new rhythm of life. My days were now filled with trying to find new interests and regain a sense of my own identity. Jessica continued to be my indispensable supporter, and yoga became part of my new routine. However, even with all these changes, the memories of Daniel would not let go of me. They reminded of themselves in the most unexpected moments. I tried to give myself space and time, but as soon as I distracted myself, the old pain always returned like a lingering shadow. One evening, I decided to go for a walk in the park to get away from my thoughts for a moment and feel the freshness of the autumn air. The streets were empty, and I enjoyed the silence, feeling the soothing nature around me. I sat on the bench, watching the fallen leaves, and tried to just breathe. But suddenly I saw him, Daniel, walking along a path that I did not expect to see. My heart stopped, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. He was wearing a dark jacket and looked as confused as I had once been. Our eyes met, and his eyes, though a little tired, remained as warm as before. I felt the emotions that I had been trying to contain burst out. "Liz," his voice was filled with emotion. "I didn't mean to bump into you by accident. I just wanted to try to find some answers." "Why are you here?" I asked, my words barely holding back the bitter emphasis. "What do you hope to find?" I hope to find a way to understand why I did all this, he said, stepping closer. I want to understand myself and try to explain to you why everything happened the way it did. I could not stop the tears that became invisible. I tried to keep all my emotions under control, but it was impossible. You've hurt me enough already. I don't know if I can take any more. Liz, please. His voice trailed off, and I could see him trying to hold back tears. I understand that you can't forgive me right now, and I'm not asking for it. But I want to try to do something to show you that I'm not who I used to be. I felt my mind struggle between wanting to push him away and trying to understand what he was trying to say. My emotions were on edge, and I struggled to find words to express my deep disappointment and pain. You destroyed everything we built, I said, trying to keep my voice down. You cheated on me, and it's not that easy to forget. I need time, and I don't know if I can ever forgive it. His face became even sadder, and he nodded. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand why this happened. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I want to change. I looked at him one last time, and my heart ached with pain, but I knew I had to move on. I slowly got up from the bench and, without looking back, walked back to my house. Each step was difficult, but I felt it was a necessary step towards recovery. I knew that the memories of Daniel and everything that happened would be with me for a long time. But every day I tried to find new ways to cope with them and build a new life. And although the path was difficult, I hoped that one day I would find peace and be able to leave the past behind. Every day I spent trying to get back to normal was a real test. I tried to find the strength to wake up in the morning and not let memories of Daniel cloud my thoughts. My sessions with a psychologist became an important part of my life, and although I understood that the healing process would be long and painful, I tried to follow each step to move forward. One day I decided to go to a new painting workshop to distract myself and try to release my creativity. I had never drawn before, but I wanted to try something new that would give me the opportunity to express my emotions and feel part of something bigger. The workshop was quiet, and I sat down at the table, ready to begin. Having chosen colors and brushes, I tried to immerse myself in the process, letting go of all anxieties and pains. My first painting was something abstract, just colored spots and lines that didn't have much meaning. But in this chaos, I felt my emotions begin to surface. During the class, a young woman who worked on this course came into the workshop. She seemed friendly and open, and we quickly struck up a conversation. Her name was Simon. It turned out that she herself went through difficult times and found solace in painting. Painting is a way to express what you can't express in words, she told me, smiling. It can be a therapeutic process. You can use colors and shapes to convey whatever you're feeling. I looked at my picture and realized that it was true. I saw in my painting parts of my pain and disappointment, but also the hope that I will be able to find a new way. It was the first time I felt that I could express my emotions not only through tears or words, but also through creativity. We continued to communicate with Simon and became closer. Her support and understanding was a great relief for me. She told me how she herself has struggled with difficulties in her life and how important it is to find what brings you joy, even when things seem hopeless. Over time, I began to see how my life was changing. I gradually regained my confidence and self-respect. My paintings became more and more expressive and deep. Each new stroke was like a small step towards my healing. One evening, while I was painting a new painting, I received a message from Daniel. It was a letter in which he tried to express his feelings and explain his actions. His words were full of remorse and sincere apologies, but I felt that I could not go back to what was before. I opened the envelope and read it, feeling every word penetrate deep into my soul. Liz, I understand that you can't forgive me right now, and I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that I will always cherish our memories and what we had. I hope you find peace and the happiness you deserve. I closed the letter and felt tears fill my eyes. It was hard for me, but I knew that this part of my life was coming to an end. I began to accept what had happened and realized that it was important for my healing to leave the past behind. My journey was just beginning, and I knew there would be many challenges ahead, but I was ready to meet them. I found the strength and confidence to move forward and create a new life for myself. Each new day became an opportunity for growth and change, and although I still did not know where this path would lead me, I was ready to continue it with hope and faith in myself. The real turning point in my life was when I finally started to accept myself as I am. Every day was an opportunity for me to find new meaning and new ways to cope with pain. I continued to paint and even began to learn new painting techniques. It gave me the opportunity not only to distract myself from my thoughts, but also to find joy in creativity. One morning I woke up with the feeling that my life had finally begun to find a new rhythm. I planned a trip to a local museum to see an exhibition of contemporary art. It was something I hadn't done in a while, and I hoped it would give me new inspiration. When I entered the museum, I felt peace and joy fill my soul. The exhibition was impressive, and I was immersed in a world of colors and shapes that reflected the deepest human emotions. I was standing in front of one painting that depicted the dark and light zones of the human heart. It was so close to what I felt myself. After I finished viewing the exhibition, I decided to stop at the museum cafe. I ordered a cup of coffee and sat down at the table, trying to calm down and focus on my own thoughts. Suddenly, I noticed that a man I knew entered the cafe. It was Michael, an old friend from university whom I hadn't talked to in a while. "Elizabeth?" His voice was full of surprise and joy. "Is that you?" I looked up and saw him, and my heart beat faster again. "Michael, I can't believe it's you!" Michael came to my table and sat down next to me. We struck up a conversation, and it turned out that he was also interested in art. We discussed the exhibition, our favorite paintings, and other topics, and I felt a part of me that I had lost for so long being restored. "I hear you've been going through a rough time," Michael said when our conversation turned to personal topics. "I hear it wasn't easy, but I'm sure you're a real hero and you can overcome anything." His words were full of sincere support and understanding. I felt tears trying to make their way onto my lashes again, but I managed to hold them back. "Thank you, Michael. This means a lot to me." Michael suggested that we meet more often and support each other. I was grateful for his offer because communicating with someone who understood my difficulties and felt intimacy again was very important. A few weeks later, I decided to take part in a charity art fair organized in the city. It was an opportunity not only to demonstrate their work, but also to help others. I spent a lot of time preparing, and it gave me a new incentive. The day of the fair was incredibly difficult, but also extremely comforting. My paintings received positive feedback, and I felt my heart overflowing with pride and joy. My work began to bear fruit, and I saw how my efforts were paying off. That same evening, Michael took me to a small holiday party where I met new people and enjoyed the evening in a friendly circle. I realized that there was support and new opportunities around me, and this gave me the strength to go on. My days became filled with new goals and plans. I started working on a new series of paintings that reflected my recovery and new outlook on life. I learned to find joy in the simple moments and learned to appreciate the small victories along the way. With each new day, I felt more and more that life continues to bring me new opportunities and joys. I knew there were still many challenges ahead, but now I had the tools and strength to deal with them. I was ready to accept everything that life brought and to find happiness and satisfaction in every day again. One evening, I received a call from one of my old acquaintances, Jason. He was Daniel's former business partner, and we hadn't spoken in a while. I did not expect that he would want to contact me after everything that happened. "Elizabeth, I want to apologize," Jason said, his voice serious. "I know it's been a bit of a stretch between us since you found out about Daniel. I just wanted to know how you were and if there was anything I could do to help." His words were unexpected for me. I remembered all those difficult moments that I experienced because of business and financial problems related to Daniel. But I also felt that it was an opportunity to close another page of my past. "I appreciate your offer," I replied, trying to control my emotions. "It's important to me, but I'm already trying to deal with everything that happened." Jason supported my decision and suggested we meet again to discuss the past. I decided to accept his offer and went to the meeting feeling mixed emotions. During the meeting, Jason told me about his efforts to resolve my financial problems and help me get reimbursed for the expenses I incurred through Daniel's business. It was a gesture I appreciated, although I didn't know how much it would help me in the future. "I want you to know that I am truly sorry for what happened," he said. "I realize it won't fix anything, but I hope it helps a little." These words were important to me. I felt that this conversation helped me touch old wounds again, but with a new understanding. It helped me realize that I have the power to take control of my life and not let the past influence my future again. After meeting Jason, I felt the need for another challenge. I decided to join a local support group for survivors of infidelity. I was interested in sharing my experience and hearing the stories of others who have gone through similar difficulties. The first meeting was difficult. I was amazed at the number of people who struggled with similar emotions and situations. As I began to listen to their stories, I felt my own struggles begin to ease as I saw that I was not alone in my struggle. One of the participants, Laura, spoke about how difficult it was for her to forgive and find the strength to continue living. Her story reminded me of my own trials, and I felt that I could give something to this environment. "This process is not only about forgiving others, but also about forgiving yourself," Laura said. "We must learn to love ourselves despite everything that has happened." These words became an important discovery for me. I began to think more about my attitude towards myself and how I can find new joy and harmony in my life. A month passed, and I continued to work on my paintings. My new works were full of emotions and feelings that I was experiencing, and I began to feel that my art became another form of therapy for me. One day, I received an invitation to a gallery where the works of local artists were presented. It was an opportunity to share my art and get feedback from a wider audience. I felt that this could be an important step in my creative development. The evening of the exhibition was filled with anxiety and excitement. I prepared for possible critics and reviews. My paintings were displayed on the walls, and I felt my heart beat faster when people started looking at them. By the end of the evening, I received several positive comments and several comments. It was gratifying and a little disappointing at the same time. I understood that art is not only about praise, but also about how it affects the artist himself. When I returned home, I reflected again on what had happened. I understood that not every feedback can be positive, but it is important to continue working on yourself and not stop. So the day came when I decided to meet Daniel again. I knew it would be difficult, but I felt the need to close this chapter of my life and do everything I could to find peace again. We met at a cafe that used to be our favorite place. I felt my heart sink from the memories, but I was ready to deal with the emotions. "Elizabeth," he began as we sat down, "I would like to talk about our past and share my feelings." Daniel talked about his mistakes, about how he regrets everything that happened. His words were full of remorse, but I already knew that they could not change what had happened. "I appreciate your words," I said, feeling the tears try to break through again. "But it's important for me to move forward and leave the past behind." We discussed our memories and decided that it was best for both of us to start a new chapter in life. We said goodbye to all the emotions and feelings that held us together, and I felt a heavy burden disappear from my shoulders. After meeting with Daniel, I felt that my soul became lighter. I plunged into my creativity again and started working on new projects. My confidence grew, and I felt my spirit blossom again. I continued to attend support groups that helped me stay positive. I learned to find joy in simple things and to find new ways to grow. One day, as I looked at my latest painting, I realized that my art had become a true reflection of my growth and recovery. I was proud that I was able to go through all the difficulties and find a new meaning in my life. Life went on, and I knew there would be many challenges ahead. But I was ready to meet them with new strength and confidence. I was ready to discover new opportunities and find happiness in each new day. Elizabeth begins to find her place in the world again and regain her faith in herself. Her journey to healing and new opportunities continues, and she is ready to face all new challenges with an open heart. A few months passed, and life began to recover in a new rhythm. I continued to paint, participate in exhibitions, and work on new projects. My art studio became my refuge, a place where I could distract myself from worries and worries. However, one day as I was walking into the studio, I saw a news item in the local paper that caught my attention. It was written about a generous donation made by a new patron to support young artists. This patron, as it turned out, was a well-known businessman and philanthropist whose benevolence had already helped many talents. The news about this inspired me. I decided to apply for a grant, hoping that it would help me develop my art even further. The application process was difficult, but I was stubborn and dedicated to my work. I wrote a motivational letter and prepared a portfolio of my works. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to a personal meeting with the patron. It was a huge achievement for me, and I felt that my efforts were finally starting to pay off. When I entered the patron's office, I was struck by his grandeur and style. It was a large, bright room with many paintings and sculptures. The patron, Jonathan Woods, greeted me with a smile and said hello. He was middle-aged with an elegant appearance and good character. "Elizabeth, I'm glad you were able to come," he said. "I am very interested to learn more about your work." We spent several hours discussing my paintings, my experiences, and my plans for the future. Jonathan listened carefully and asked questions that helped me better understand myself and my work. "Your work is truly impressive," he said at the end of the meeting. "I see a lot of emotion and depth in it. I would like to support your further efforts." His words were a great joy for me. I received a grant that helped me implement new projects and ensure financial stability. It was a real gift for my creativity and my spirit. With the new grant, I decided to expand my art studio and purchase new materials for work. It gave me the opportunity to experiment with new techniques and create more works that reflected my experiences and my thoughts. I also decided to organize my own exhibition to share with the public what I have been working on. It was a big step forward, and I felt that I could finally devote myself fully to my art. Preparation for the exhibition was stressful, but very exciting. I worked on each picture, trying to reflect all my emotions and experiences. I hoped that people who come to the exhibition will be able to feel what I felt when I created my works. The day of the exhibition's opening came, and I was full of excitement and anxiety. I didn't know what to expect, but I was open to any feedback. When the gallery doors opened, I saw people coming in and looking at my paintings. I stood at the entrance and watched their reactions. Many people approached my paintings, stopped, and looked carefully. I heard their comments and feedback, and it was very nice and reassuring. The evening ended on a positive note. I received several new orders and proposals for further work. It was a great success for me and confirmation that I am on the right path. My art began to bring new opportunities and acquaintances. I became part of the artistic community and started receiving invitations to various events and competitions. It gave me the opportunity to continue to grow as an artist and find new ways to express myself. I also started working on a project that involved collaboration with other artists. It was a new and exciting experience for me, and I felt that this collaboration helped me grow and open new horizons. However, despite all the positive changes, I felt that my emotional wound had not yet fully healed. I continued to attend support groups and work on my mental health. My new acquaintances and new opportunities helped me recover, but I knew that I also needed to pay attention to my inner situation. One day, I received a phone call from my old friend Michael. He said he had news about his personal life and would like to share it with me. Michael invited me to dinner, and I gladly accepted the invitation. We sat down at a table in a small restaurant and started a conversation. Michael told me about his new love, and his happiness was palpable and contagious. "I'm happy for you, Michael," I said, feeling his joy fill me with positive energy. "You deserve this happiness." This meeting helped me to feel that life goes on and that I can find joy in the joy of other people. Over time, I continued to develop as an artist and a person. I started receiving international invitations to exhibitions and conferences. It was an exciting experience, and I felt that my art now transcended local boundaries. I traveled to different countries and met new people who inspired me and opened new perspectives. I was grateful for the opportunity to learn more about different cultures and ways of expressing art. My friends and loved ones remained an important part of my life. I continued to talk to Laura, Jason, and Michael. We shared our achievements and experiences, and it helped me stay in touch with people who really supported me. One evening, we got together for a little party to celebrate my latest achievement. It was a happy and important moment for me, when I could share my success with those who were by my side during difficult times. With new opportunities and successes came new challenges. I continued to work on my projects and participate in new events. It required a lot of effort and energy, but I felt that it was part of my growth and development. I also started developing new projects that were focused on social issues and supporting young talents. I wanted to use my art to draw attention to important issues and help other people. A year after I found out about Alex's betrayal, I felt my inner wound begin to heal. I was no longer consumed by pain and anger. I found joy again in my art and in life in general. I met new people who supported me and inspired me to achieve new things. My relationship with Alex was a thing of the past, and I no longer allowed him to influence my life. I was ready to move forward with new dreams and plans. My life was bright and full again, and I knew that many more opportunities and adventures lay ahead. I hope this piece was moving and helped you feel the emotions you were looking for. If you need more parts or clarifications, let me know. Sometime after my new achievements, I met Jake at an exhibition opening in one of the galleries. He was new to the art world, but his passion and interest in painting was evident at first glance. We quickly found a common language, and our conversations were filled with genuine interest and energy. With each new meeting, I admired Jake more and more. He was caring and attentive, always supported me and my creative plans. His sincerity and kindness helped me feel that I could open up and trust again. One evening, as we sat by the lake, Jake looked at me with a special twinkle in his eye. "Elizabeth, I feel like you've become a very important part of my life. I feel like I've finally found what I've been looking for so long." These words became touching for me, and I felt my heart fill with warmth and joy. It was the moment when I realized that I was ready to start a new chapter in my life. A few months later, we celebrated our first holiday together. It was Christmas, and Jake organized a small party for us and our close friends. I was touched by his diligence and attention to detail. The evening was filled with laughter, music, and warm conversations. As the evening drew to a close, Jake took my hand and led me to a small tree with a present under it. "This is for you," he said, handing me a small box. I opened the box and found a beautiful silver locket inside. It contained our photo and a small note. "Merry Christmas, Elizabeth. You have become a true gift to me. I want you to always remember how much you mean to me." My heart was filled with joy and gratitude. It was more than just a gift. It was a sign that Jake really valued me and our relationship. However, life was not always cloudless. Like any couple, Jake and I faced difficulties and misunderstandings. Once we had a serious fight over a small misunderstanding. It was difficult for both of us, and I felt old wounds and fears reopening. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to solve our problems. I realized that communication and openness is the key to solving any difficulties. We sat down together and honestly discussed all our worries and fears. This conversation became an important milestone for us. We were able to find a common solution and understand that each of us can contribute something positive to the relationship. It was painful, but also useful. After we overcame our difficulties, I felt that we became even closer to each other. We started discussing our future plans and dreams. Jake shared his ideas about creating a joint project that would combine our passions. We decided to organize a joint art installation that would combine painting and photography. It was an exciting project that required a lot of time and effort, but together we coped with all the challenges and enjoyed the creative process. One summer day, we decided to spend time at the beach. Jake organized a little picnic on the beach, and we enjoyed the sun, sand, and sea. It was a great window of rest that gave us a chance to just be together and enjoy each other's company. We walked along the beach holding hands and enjoying the beauty of nature. Jake suddenly stopped and looked at me with a peculiar look. "Elizabeth, you have made my life brighter and fuller. I can't imagine how I would live without you." Those words meant a lot to me, and I felt that we really found each other. I decided to return to my hometown for a short time to visit family and friends. It was an important trip for me, as I wanted to share my new happiness and achievements with loved ones. Jake joined me on this visit. My parents were happy to see us together, and we spent time talking and celebrating old traditions. It was warm and moving, and I felt that my family and Jake had become important parts of my life. After we got back from our trip, Jake unexpectedly proposed to me. We were sitting together in our favorite coffee shop when he took my hand and looked at me with a special look. "Elizabeth, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. Are you ready to be my wife?" My heart beat faster, and I felt tears of joy form in my eyes. Yes, Jake, I'm ready. The moment we kissed and hugged was incredibly touching and important for both of us. Preparation for the wedding has become a new and exciting stage for us. We discussed all the details and planned every aspect of the celebration. It was fun, but sometimes stressful when we faced difficulties and misunderstandings. However, despite all the difficulties, we continued to support each other and work on organizing our perfect day. We chose a place for the wedding ceremony, picked up costumes, and organized all the necessary details. The wedding day arrived, and I felt excitement and joy intertwined in my heart. Jake and I were ready to start a new life together. The ceremony was touching and filled with love and warmth. As we exchanged our vows, I felt tears of joy running down my cheeks. It was the moment when all worries and difficulties were left behind, and we became one family. After the wedding, we went on our honeymoon to a beautiful resort. It was a time for us to relax and enjoy each other's company without any worries. We spent the week exploring new places, tasting new foods, and just enjoying the moments together. This honeymoon became for us a symbol of a new beginning and new opportunities. My heart was filled with happiness and gratitude. I knew that despite all the difficulties, we found each other and built our life on the basis of true love and mutual understanding.